When you look at the ministry of Jesus, it was one of words and works. He preached the kingdom and he demonstrated the kingdom. The two went hand in hand. One authenticated the other. And so compassion and preaching the gospel cannot ever be separated or divorced from each other. If God really loves people, if Christ really died for every person in every home surrounding this church, that isn't just a gospel message of words, it's got to be a gospel message of action and compassion.
A lot of people, for whatever reason, have barriers that prevent them coming to church or to have any connection to a church. So when we can show people that, we're not about, we want you into our church, we want you to sit in our seats, but we would just want to show you that we love you, that we care, and that if there's anything that we can do, we can help.
So really early on in lockdown, whenever the kind of lockdown first happened, a group of the key leaders and kind of people who were volunteers in the village all came together to try and come up with a kind of joint strategic approach to how we can best serve the community. Rather than the churches and the community centres all doing their own things really well, we thought it'd be better if everyone came together and kind of had a bit of a joined up approach and pulling our time, pulling our resources, pulling our volunteer base together to kind of have a united approach to how we can reach out and serve the community here of which we are a part. So every Thursday we have been coming together here in the community centre. A whole team of us have been here to pack food parcels. So we have been receiving the council food bank parcels that are for people who have been shielding, and then we have our own emergency food bank that we set up here in the community centre, and all the food that you see around you has been donated by people here in the village. They can either bring food up to the community centre and leave it at the door, or they can leave food in the Eurospar in the middle of the village. And as you can see, the community have been so generous in their response.
As a church, we've, over a number of years, worked to really ingrain ourselves into the local community. We believe that as a church, an outworking of our faith is to play a real holistic role within the life of our local area. And so we do lots of things, not just on a Sunday in terms of worship services, but things right throughout the week that seek to address the needs of the local population. So we've got things like a music academy that runs that provides subsidised music lessons for children and adults in the area, and some of the music academy team go into local schools as well and take music lessons there. We've had funding through Active Belfast and produced a community health and fitness hub. So over about 3 years we've run a variety of fitness and nutritional programs for families, for young, for older ones. And even as lockdown has eased, we've done outdoor Zoom classes, spin classes, kettlebell classes and the likes of that. Currently we're running an outdoor mini boot camp once a week during the summer. And that's sort of rolled out of our desire to try and tackle holiday hunger. We have been planning at Easter and during the summer to provide hot meals on a Tuesday and on a Thursday. But of course with all the current restrictions we haven't been able to do that. And so we've moved it outdoors. We've taken a gazebo out onto a large green area in the middle of the estate. We do a mini boot camp for half an hour and then we provide everyone with a packed lunch, courtesy of the Mothers Union.
Not too bad. Can we go in? Yes, come on ahead. As we began to think through how can we make a difference during lockdown here, we thought, well, what are the immediate needs of families? And I guess one of the immediate needs we saw were simply day to day. Just groceries, the ordinary things that people need every day, from breakfast cereal to washing up liquid to washing powder. And so we put aside somewhere between £3,500 and £4,000. We spoke to the management in Tesco, who are next door here, and we basically said, we have this much money, we want to do 100 food parcels. Can you maximise the amount of food for what we have, and they were brilliant. And a Tesco lorry arrived basically one evening. We unpacked it, and there was about £4,000 worth of food, enough food for 110 food parcels. So we unloaded it. Then a few nights later, about 20-25 people arrived down here, and we had boxes, and we boxed it all up. And then that was on the Monday night. Then on the Thursday night, about 30 people from church arrived with cars and vans, and we went out into the local community and distributed these boxes of groceries. There was one estate in particular, which we were in the middle of lockdown and isolation, but this little housing development was the most isolated place I think I'd ever seen. There was one road in and one road out, and maybe 20 little houses in it, and that was it. Just basically derelict ground around them. People who have lived here all their lives. None of us had ever heard of this estate. And we went there, and out of the 20 houses, just every single one of them was so appreciative of everything that they got. They couldn't believe that people would actually care enough to drive up and hand them a box full of essential groceries. You know, one of the comments I got on a Facebook message from one of the people we gave a food parcel to was this: "I can't believe a church would give anything to those that weren't their own members." And sadly, that's the perception of a lot of people out there, that the church will look after their own, but they won't look after anyone else. And not one person on our list was part of our own church. And for me, that was one of the blessings. And so I think it stirred us up. It got us mobilised in the middle of a time when everyone was locked out. And it also stirred us up to realise the possibility and potential of continuing to engage in the community and see lives transformed with the gospel of Jesus.
There was one particular lady who had lost her husband just prior to lockdown happening. And so whenever, obviously, everyone in lockdown, she was very isolated. And I was on the phone to her doing pastoral phone calls over the phone, as lots of ministers have been doing in these days. And she mentioned to me that she had been knitting rainbows. And so I phoned round a few of our craft ladies in the church and got them on board. And everyone then started knitting rainbows along with the woman who was doing it in her own home. And we made these little tags to go along with them. It just says God keeps his promises, and on the back it says always hold on to hope. May God bless you and keep you. And so we had the little rainbows that she was knitting. Here we made some of them into little keychains, and we left these into the local hospitals, in the prayer rooms of the hospitals, just as a way of blessing the local community and saying, you know what, it's a difficult time, it's a dark time, but always hold on to hope because God keeps his promises. And so out of one woman's pain and grief, God has brought something really beautiful out of that's been able to bless people who we don't even know. We always believe that church is more than just a building, and this season has really shown that as important as our church buildings are, and they are important, but church is more than a building. So even when the buildings are closed, the church is still very much being the church. We're still being the hands and feet of Jesus in the community around us, and in many ways maybe made people think outside of the box, and maybe made people reflect a little bit more on what is the mission and ministry of the church, and how can we do that in really practical ways, whether it's making a home-cooked meal and delivering it to somebody, whether it's lifting the phone and giving somebody a call and saying, how are you, how can I pray for you, whether it's going and sitting in somebody's back garden and having a socially distant chat with them, or whether it's knitting rainbows and taking those and delivering those out to people who are going through some really difficult times. It's our heart, it's to share something of our heart as a church for the community that we're part of. That we want to not only be the church on the hill, but we want to be a light on the hill, and we want to show and share God's love in practical ways. And if we've done even a small amount of that in this season, well then it's a real privilege to be able to do that.
Everybody has something to give. The reason why I'm involved in what I am is years ago I found myself in a situation where I was separated from my husband. I was on my own with 3 small kids. I was in emergency housing, had no income, had no real sort of support, and it was the church that was there providing, because different charities couldn't help me because, again, I wasn't in their boundaries, I didn't tick their boxes, but the church stepped up and they filled all the needs that I needed, not only physically but emotionally and spiritually as well. And now, because of that, I can help people in the same situation, and everybody has a life that they've lived. They've all gone through circumstances, and that's what God uses, you know, to help and meet other people in that same place. The Bible's full of broken people that God used in amazing ways, and we're just the same. And we all have something of value to give, even if we can't see it. God sees it in us.